The market was loud, full of shouts, smells, and dust. Yet in the corner sat a girl no one wanted to see. She was not just any girl. She was an alien, thin, tired, and covered in dirt. Her skin, once bright with natural markings, looked dull now. Her hair, tangled and heavy with dust, fell in her face. People passed by her as if she did not exist. Some even spat when they looked at her. To them she was nothing. The traders called her the dirty one. No name, no respect, just a word used to push her down. Other slaves had been sold quickly, strong men, pretty women, and even young children. But she remained, unwanted, like broken glass no one cared to touch. Every time a buyer came, they turned their head away from her. Not worth it, they whispered. Too filthy, too weak, too useless. The girl sat silently, her knees pulled to her chest. She was hungry, but hunger was not new to her. Her stomach had been empty for days. She was thirsty too, but no one gave her water. Her throat burned, yet she did not ask. She had learned long ago that begging only brought laughter or a beating. So she kept quiet. Her heart was heavy. She was not just dirty on the outside, she believed she was dirty on the inside too. When everyone around you tells you that you are nothing, soon you begin to believe it. She believed it. She thought she was trash, less than even the dust on the ground. Still, somewhere deep inside, a small spark of life refused to die. She wanted to live even if she did not know why. She wanted someone to see her, to believe she was more than dirt. But hope was dangerous. Hope only made the fall harder when it never came. That evening, the sun was setting. Shadows stretched long across the market. The traders were tired, their voices weaker after a long day of selling. Only the unwanted slaves remained, those too broken, too old, or too strange. She was one of them. The traders didn't even bother to push her forward anymore. The girl's eyes moved across the crowd. Buyers were leaving. Lanterns lit the dusty street, and laughter filled the air as people went home with their purchases. Families, masters, servants, all walking away. Soon the market would be empty and she would still be here waiting for nothing. But then, someone stopped. A man stood not far from her. He was human, tall and broad-shouldered, dressed in worn clothes that spoke of travel and struggle. His face was calm, his eyes sharp. Unlike others, he did not look away from her. He looked at her as if she was the only one there. The girl froze. Fear rose inside her chest. She had seen that look before, the look of someone choosing. Did he want her? Why? What could he possibly want from her when everyone else had rejected her? The trader noticed him and gave a tired laugh. That one? She is nothing. A waste of coin. Dirty, weak, and silent. You don't want her. But the human did not reply. He stepped closer. The girl's body trembled. In her mind, she saw chains, pain, and darkness. Humans were said to be dangerous, cruel. She told herself not to hope, not to dream. He was just another master waiting to use her until she broke. Yet, there was something strange in his eyes. They were not full of hunger or greed. They carried something she did not understand, thoughtfulness, maybe even pity. The trader waved his hand. She won't clean, she won't speak. Worthless, I tell you, better to take the strong ones. Still, the human crouched down to look at her face. The girl turned her eyes away, ashamed of her dirt, her smell, her weakness. She wished the ground would swallow her, but he did not move away. Do you want her? The trader asked again, annoyed. Silence. The man kept watching her. The girl's heart raced. Why was he staring? Did he see something she could not? Did he see past the dirt? She hugged her knees tighter, pressing her face down. Don't look at me, she thought. Don't choose me. Don't take me away. But deep down, another voice whispered, soft and dangerous. Maybe this one is different. The human finally spoke, his voice low but firm. How much? The trader blinked. For her, less than a loaf of bread. She's nothing. The man nodded slowly. Without another word, he pulled out coins and handed them over. The girl's breath caught in her chest. Her world shifted in that moment. She was chosen, bought, taken. The chains around her wrists felt heavier than before as the traitor shoved her forward. Her legs shook as she stumbled toward the human. She dared not look up. She dared not speak. Her heart whispered two words again and again, louder with each step. Why him? Why me? The market faded behind her. The night grew darker, and as she walked beside the human, fear and confusion battled inside her. She did not know what awaited her. Torture, labor, death, or something she could not yet imagine. For the first time in years, her future was not empty. It was unknown, and that was the most frightening thing of all. The girl walked beside the human, her feet dragging across the stone path. Every sound around her felt sharper. The distant cries of merchants, the clatter of closing stalls, the hiss of lantern flames. But louder than all was the pounding in her chest. She did not dare lift her eyes. She did not dare breathe too loudly. He had bought her. Why? That question filled her mind again and again. Men bought slaves for work, for cruelty, for power. What could he want with her, the one everyone called worthless? The man's steps were steady. He did not speak, did not pull her roughly, did not strike her as other masters once had. His grip on the chain was firm but not cruel. Still, silence scared her more than shouting ever did. Finally, after what felt like hours, they reached a quiet alley away from the noise of the market. The man stopped and turned to face her. She froze, her whole body tense like a trapped animal. "Look at me," he said. His voice was calm, not loud, not sharp. Slowly, her eyes lifted, trembling. She expected anger, disgust, or maybe hunger in his gaze. But what she saw was strange. His eyes were steady, not mocking. He studied her the way one might study a broken tool, wondering if it could still be fixed. He crouched down so his face was level with hers. "Do you understand me?" he asked. She nodded faintly, though fear kept her from speaking. "Good," he said. "Then listen, I didn't buy you for pain. I didn't buy you for work. Do you understand that?" The girl blinked. The words felt unreal. Not for pain? Not for work? Then why? Her lips trembled, but no sound came out. She shook her head slightly as if saying, "I don't understand." The man sighed, his expression softening. He released the chain and let it fall. Her eyes widened. The weight that bound her wrists dropped to the ground with a dull clink. She stared at it, not daring to move, afraid it was a trick. "You're free now," he said simply. Her breath caught. Free? That word did not belong to her. She was not meant to be free. The world had told her she was dirt, trash, something to be used and thrown away. Freedom was not for the dirty. Her legs trembled. She looked at him with wide eyes, waiting for laughter, waiting for cruelty, waiting for the moment he pulled the chain back and shouted, "Did you believe that fool?" But he only stood there calm and serious. "Why?" she whispered. It was the first word she had spoken in many days. The man's expression did not change. "Because no one deserves chains. Not you. Not anyone." Her chest tightened. The words struck something deep inside her, something buried under years of insults and beatings. She wanted to believe him. But belief was dangerous. "You don't know me," she whispered again, her voice shaking. "I am dirty." He frowned. "Dirty? That's what they called you?" She nodded, her face hot with shame. "They lied," he said firmly. "Dirt washes away. What they said doesn't define you. You are more than their words." The girl's throat tightened. She wanted to cry, but tears did not come easily anymore. She shook her head again, as if rejecting his kindness. It hurt. Too much to hope. The man stood and reached into the small bag on his shoulder. He pulled out bread and held it toward her. Eat. Her stomach twisted at the sight. Hunger screamed inside her, but suspicion held her back. What if it was poisoned? What if this was another trick? He noticed her hesitation. Slowly, without a word, he tore the bread in two. He ate one half in front of her, chewing calmly. Then, he held the other piece out again. This time, her shaking hands reached forward. She grabbed it quickly, almost like an animal, and pressed it to her lips. The taste of real food broke through her fear. She ate, her tears falling silently onto the bread. The man said nothing as she ate. He simply watched, patient, as if he had seen such pain before. When she finished, she wiped her mouth with her sleeve and stared at the ground. Shame, relief, and confusion swirled inside her. He spoke again. "You are not property. You are not trash. You will see that soon." The girl looked up at him, her heart beating wildly. His words were impossible, but his eyes carried no lie. Still, fear whispered inside her. He is human. Humans are dangerous. Can you really trust him? The man turned, gesturing for her to follow. She hesitated, then stepped after him, the chain dragging uselessly at her feet. As they walked into the night, her mind was torn in two. One side screamed warnings, told her she would regret every step she took. The other side, the quieter side, whispered something she had not heard in years. Hope. For the first time since she could remember, she wondered, what if this human is not like the others? What if he truly means what he says? The thought was dangerous. But as she followed him into the unknown, she could not stop herself from believing, just a little. The road stretched long and quiet under the dark sky. The girl followed the human silently, her bare feet brushing against the dirt. Every step felt heavy. She had been taken before by masters who promised safety, and all those promises ended in pain. Why should this time be different? Yet there was something strange about this man. He walked ahead without pulling her, without shouting, without striking her. The chain still dangled loosely from her wrists, but he never used it. She could run if she wanted, but where would she go? No one wanted her. The streets would laugh at her, spit at her, call her dirty again. At least with him there was bread and a calm voice. They reached a small shelter on the edge of the town. It was not a rich house, not even close. The roof was patched. The walls were old, but inside it was warm. A small fire burned in the corner, the smell of wood smoke filling the air. She paused at the door, unsure if she was allowed inside. The man looked back at her. "Come in," he said simply. Her legs moved slowly, carrying her across the threshold. The place was clean, simple, and quiet. A table stood near the fire with some tools and an old lantern resting on it. A mat lay on the floor for sleeping. It was no palace, but to her it felt like another world. The man set his bag down and turned to her. "Sit," he said, pointing toward the mat. She obeyed instantly, lowering herself to the ground. Her eyes stayed down, afraid to meet his. From the bag, he pulled out a flask and poured water into a small cup. He set it in front of her. "Drink." Her lips parted. Water. Real, clean water. She hesitated again, her old fears whispering in her head. But when she looked at his face, there was no sign of trickery. Slowly, she lifted the cup and drank. The cool liquid soothed her dry throat. For the first time in many days, the burning inside her chest eased. "Better?" he asked. She nodded silently. The man gave a short nod and went about preparing his own food. He pulled out dried meat, some more bread, and placed them on the table. When he noticed her watching carefully, he split the bread and handed half to her again. Her fingers clutched it tight. She ate quickly, afraid someone would snatch it away. He watched her, but not with anger. Instead, he seemed sad, as though her suffering was something he had seen before and wished he could erase. After the meal, silence filled the room. The fire cracked softly. Shadows danced on the walls. The girl sat with her knees pulled close, her eyes fixed on the flames. "Do you have a name?" the man asked suddenly. She froze. No one had asked her that in years. To the world she was just dirty one, useless, worthless. Her name had been buried deep under shame. Her lips moved, the sound so faint she almost did not hear herself. "Lyra." The man leaned closer. "Lyra," he repeated, as if tasting the word. He nodded. "A good name. Better than the lies they called you." The sound of her name on his lips struck her like a shock. It was real. She still had a name. She still existed. Her eyes burned, and for the first time in a long time, tears rolled down her cheeks. She quickly wiped them away, ashamed of showing weakness. The man did not scold her. He did not mock her. He only said, "Rest now. You are safe here." Safe. That word felt dangerous. Could she believe it? Could she trust him? She lay down on the mat, curling into herself. Her body shook, not from cold, but from fear of what tomorrow might bring. Sleep did not come easily. Every creak of the wood, every whisper of wind outside, made her flinch. She had lived too long in a world where safety was a lie. But slowly, as the fire warmed her skin, her eyes grew heavy. Her stomach was not empty. Her throat was not dry. And though fear still pressed against her heart, another feeling rose with it, confusion. Why was he different? Why did he care? The man sat near the fire, sharpening a blade, his eyes thoughtful. He did not watch her like a master watching a slave. He watched her like someone guarding a fragile secret. Lyra drifted into restless dreams, her mind full of memories she hated, chains, laughter, dirt, insults. But among the shadows of her dreams, something new appeared. A human's voice, calm and steady, calling her by her real name. When morning came, she woke with a start. The fire had burned low, but the man was still there, awake, sitting upright, against the wall. He had not chained her again during the night. He had not touched her. He had only stayed guarding. She stared at him, her chest rising and falling. Perhaps, just perhaps, this first night was the beginning of something she had never dared to believe in. Not torture, not chains, but maybe, just maybe, redemption. Wow. Morning light broke through the cracks in the wooden roof, painting golden lines across the small shelter. Lyra sat up slowly, her body stiff from sleeping on the mat. She rubbed her eyes, unsure for a moment if last night had been real, or just another dream. The bread, the water, the warmth of the fire, those things were real. She touched her wrists and realized the chains were still loose. The man had not locked them again. She looked across the room. The human was already awake. He sat near the fire, sharpening a blade with calm, steady motions. He looked up as she stirred. Their eyes met, and for the first time Lyra did not look away instantly. His gaze was firm but not cruel. "Come," he said, standing. Her heart jumped. The word felt heavy. She rose slowly, her knees weak, and followed him outside. The air was cool, fresh, carrying the smell of damp earth. He led her along a narrow path that curved around the back of the shelter. Her mind filled with questions. Where was he taking her? Was this the moment the kindness ended? They stopped in front of a small shed-like structure. From its roof, a pipe jutted out, dripping water into a stone basin below. Steam rose faintly in the morning chill. Lyra's breath caught. Water. A lot of it. Clean. Flowing. Not the muddy puddles she had once begged to drink from. This was different. Controlled. Warm. Safe. The man stepped aside, gesturing toward it. "You need this," he said simply. Her stomach twisted with confusion. She shook her head quickly, backing away. Memories of mockery flooded her mind. People spitting at her, laughing at her filth, calling her worthless. Did he want to humiliate her now? To strip away what little dignity she had left? "I can't," she whispered, her voice breaking. You can, he replied, his tone steady. He did not move closer. Instead, he turned away, giving her his back. No one will watch. It's for you, not for me. The words froze her. For her? That had never been said before. Everything in her life had been for someone else's gain, someone else's pleasure. Never for her. She stood trembling, torn between fear and longing. Her body was filthy. Dirt clung to her skin, to her tangled hair, to every scar. She had not seen her true reflection in years. To step into that water was to face herself again, and that thought terrified her. The man placed a small bar of soap and a cloth near the basin. He didn't force her, didn't rush her. When you're ready, he said, and walked a few paces away, sitting on a rock with his back still turned. Lyra's chest rose and fell rapidly. She glanced at him, then at the steaming water. Her hands shook as she stepped forward. Slowly, she dipped her fingers in. Warmth spread up her arm, chasing away the chill. Tears stung her eyes. One step, then another. She moved under the pipe and the water began to fall across her shoulders. She gasped, the sensation so strange, so overwhelming, that for a moment she froze. Then, slowly, she let it run over her face, her arms, her body. Dirt began to wash away. Dark streaks ran down her skin. The water turned brown at her feet. She scrubbed with the cloth harder and harder, as if trying to erase the years of shame and pain clinging to her. The soap foamed in her hands, a sweet smell filling her nose. She rubbed it into her hair, the knots loosening little by little. Water cascaded down, carrying away the filth, revealing the natural shimmer of her alien skin. And then, for the first time in so long, she saw herself clearly. There was a small mirror hanging on the shed wall. She hesitated, heart racing, before stepping closer. Her reflection stared back. Not dirty, not worthless. Her skin glowed faintly with silver patterns that pulsed with life. Her eyes, once dull, now shone like polished glass. Her hair, dark and wet, framed her face in a way she had forgotten it could. She covered her mouth with her hands, tears spilling freely. She was not ugly. She was not trash. She was still alive. She was still herself. Behind her, the human's voice came, calm and firm. That's who you really are. She spun around, startled, but he had not turned to look at her. He kept his promise, his back facing her. His words, however, cut through the air like a blade, straight into her heart. Lyra pressed her hand to her chest. For the first time, the word dirty began to lose its power. When she finally stepped away from the water, she wrapped herself in the clean cloth he had left for her. She felt lighter, almost new. The man stood as she approached. His eyes flicked to her only briefly, then away again, showing respect. But that brief look carried no disgust, no mockery, only approval. You're ready now, he said. Ready for what? She asked softly, her voice trembling. He gave her a small, almost hidden smile. For a life they told you couldn't have. Her knees weakened, but she held herself tall. Something inside her had changed with that water. She was not healed, not yet, but she was no longer broken beyond repair. As they walked back toward the shelter, the chain around her wrists clinked lightly. But for the first time, she noticed, the chain was loose. So loose, she could slip out if she wanted. He had left it that way on purpose. Freedom was close, and with each step she wondered if she dared to take it. When Lyra stepped back into the shelter after the shower, the air inside felt different. Or maybe it was her who had changed. Her skin no longer carried the heavy crust of dust. Her hair no longer hung in tangled knots, and the dullness in her eyes had lifted. She felt lighter, though her heart still carried scars. The human looked at her once, then away, respecting her silence. But in that single glance, there was no disgust, no pity, only recognition, as if he saw her not as a broken thing but as a person. For Lyra it was strange. All her life eyes had looked at her with scorn, hatred, or hunger, never with calm respect. That glance, so simple, carried more weight than chains ever could. She sat on the mat again, wrapping the clean cloth around her tightly. The man placed food in front of her, warm broth he had heated on the fire. The smell filled the room, making her stomach twist with longing. "Eat," he said. She hesitated, as always. But then she remembered how he had eaten bread first, showing her it was safe. Slowly, she lifted the bowl and sipped. Warmth spread through her, chasing away the last of the night's cold. "Better," he said softly. She nodded, too shy to speak. But deep inside, something was shifting. A wall that had been built around her heart, brick by brick, was beginning to crack. As the days passed, she found small changes in herself. She spoke more. At first, just single words. "Yes," "No," "Water." Then slowly, full sentences. The man never rushed her, never mocked her broken voice. He answered every word with patience, as if each one was proof that she was coming back to life. At night, she slept without nightmares as often. The fire warmed her, and she no longer flinched at every sound. She began to trust that he would not hurt her while she slept. That trust was fragile, but it grew, like a small seed pushing through the dirt. One evening, while he worked with tools on the table, she sat near the fire and touched her skin. The silver patterns on her arms glowed faintly in the light. She had thought them ugly once, like stains that marked her as dirty. But now, cleaned and shining, she saw them for what they truly were, her people's gift, a mark of beauty. The man glanced at her glowing skin and said, "It suits you." She turned away quickly, her face hot. Compliments were something she had never known. For years, the only words thrown at her had been insults. To hear kindness now was like standing in sunlight after a lifetime of darkness. "Why?" she whispered. "Why do you treat me like this?" The man set down his tools. His voice was calm but heavy with meaning. "Because no one else did, and because I've seen what happens when people are forgotten. I won't let it happen again." His words echoed in her chest. She did not fully understand them, but she felt their truth. The next day he gave her clothes. Not rich or fancy, just simple, clean fabric. When she put them on, she barely recognized herself. She looked in the small mirror again, and the reflection, staring back, was not the dirty one anymore. She was Lyra, the girl with glowing patterns and strong eyes. Her heart trembled. She was changing. She was becoming someone new. Yet with transformation came fear. The more she began to see herself as worthy, the more she feared it could be taken away. What if the kindness was temporary? What if tomorrow he changed his mind? That evening she sat near the fire, her hands folded in her lap. "You will leave me one day," she said quietly. The man looked at her, frowning. "Why do you think that?" "Everyone leaves," she answered. Her voice shook. "Or worse, they stay and hurt." He leaned forward, his voice low but firm. "I won't hurt you, and I won't leave unless you tell me to." Her throat tightened. His words felt like a promise, but promises had broken her before. Still, part of her wanted to believe. Later that night, as the fire died low, Lyra lay awake. She thought of the water washing away the dirt, of the mirror showing her face, of the man's eyes when he looked at her with respect. She realized something. The chains on her wrists were no longer the strongest ones. The real chains were in her mind, the lies she had been told, the shame she had carried, the belief that she was nothing. And those chains were breaking. She turned on the mat, whispering to herself, "I am not dirty. I am Lyra." For the first time, the words felt true. By the time morning came, her steps were lighter. When she walked outside, she lifted her face to the sun, letting its warmth touch her skin. People in the village still looked at her with suspicion, but she no longer lowered her head completely. The human noticed. "You're changing," he said with a small smile. She did not answer, but in her heart, she knew he was right. The girl, who had once been ignored and rejected, was beginning to rise. Not as a slave, not as the dirty one, but as herself. And though fear still lingered, hope had grown stronger. For many days, life in the small shelter stayed quiet. Lyra was beginning to feel something she had almost forgotten: peace. She woke each morning to the smell of firewood, to clean water, and to the man's steady presence. Her body was stronger now, her steps firmer, and the glow of her alien skin shone more brightly with every passing day. But peace was a fragile thing, and in the outside world, whispers were spreading. The market traders had not forgotten the girl. To them, she had always been worthless. But when they saw her beauty, after the humans' care, greed poisoned their minds. If she could be cleaned and restored, then perhaps she was not worthless after all. Perhaps she was valuable. And value meant profit. One evening, as the sun dipped low and the sky burned red, Lyra and the human returned from gathering firewood. She carried a small bundle of sticks in her arms, her steps careful, while he carried the heavier load with ease. As they neared the shelter, she felt it, eyes watching from the shadows. Her heart tightened. She slowed, her eyes darting around. The human noticed instantly. He set down his bundle and placed a hand on her shoulder. "What is it?" She swallowed hard. "Someone is here." And she was right. From the trees stepped 3 figures, the same traders who had once laughed at her in the market. Their faces were twisted with greed. One of them sneered. "Well, well, the dirty one shines now. Looks like the human polished the trash." Lyra's stomach dropped. The words still cut, even though she had begun to heal. Her arms trembled as she held the bundle tighter. The human stepped in front of her, his stance solid. "Leave." The leader of the traders smirked. "You paid for her, but you paid too little. She's worth much more now. Give her back, and maybe we won't cause trouble." Lyra froze. Her mind raced back to the market, the laughter, the insults, the chains. She had thought she had escaped, but here it was again, clawing at her. The human's voice was low, dangerous. "She's not going anywhere." The second trader spat on the ground. "You think you can keep her? She's not yours. She belongs to us. Everything has a price." The human's hand moved subtly toward the knife at his belt. Lyra saw it, her heart pounding. She had never seen him angry before, never seen the calm in his eyes turn sharp. "She is not a thing to be bought or sold," he said firmly. "Not anymore." The words struck Lyra deep inside. Her knees felt weak. No one had ever defended her like that, not with such certainty. But the traders only laughed. "We'll take her," the leader said coldly, "with or without your permission." One of them stepped forward, reaching past the human, his greedy eyes fixed on Lyra. She stumbled back, fear flooding her chest. Memories screamed inside her head: chains, beatings, humiliation. Her body froze, and then steel flashed. The human drew his knife, his stance protective, blocking their path. "Try it," he said. His voice was calm, but it carried a deadly promise. The traders paused, surprised by the strength in his eyes. They had expected an easy fight, but the man before them was not weak. He was ready to bleed for her. The leader narrowed his eyes. "This isn't over," he hissed. "We'll be back, and when we return, you won't stop us." With that, they slipped back into the shadows, their threats heavy in the air. When they were gone, silence filled the forest. Lyra's knees gave way and she dropped to the ground, her bundle of sticks scattering. Her chest heaved with shaky breaths. The human crouched beside her, his knife still in hand, his other hand steady on her shoulder. "They won't touch you," he said firmly. "Not while I'm here." Her eyes filled with tears. She wanted to believe him, but fear had its claws deep in her heart. "They'll come back," she whispered. "They'll take me. They always take me." He shook his head, his grip steady. "Not this time. Not while I'm breathing." The fire in his voice startled her. It was not empty words. It was a vow. She looked into his eyes and saw no lie, no hesitation. For the first time, she felt the weight of his promise settle around her like a shield. But inside her chest, two feelings fought. Fear still lingered, but beside it now was something new. Trust. He had not run. He had not given her up. He had stood between her and danger. That night, she lay on the mat, unable to sleep. Every creak of wood and whisper of wind reminded her of the traitor's words. This isn't over. But then she remembered his words too. Not while I'm breathing. Her eyes closed slowly, and though fear did not vanish, hope burned brighter. For, the first time in her life, someone had chosen to fight for her. The night was heavy with silence, but Lyra could not rest. The traitors' voices still echoed in her ears. We'll be back. Every creak of the old wooden shelter made her flinch. Every gust of wind felt like footsteps drawing near. Yet beside her, the human slept lightly, his hand resting near the hilt of his knife. Even in sleep, he was ready. She curled into herself, staring at the faint glow of her silver patterns on her arms. A few weeks ago, she had hated those markings, thinking they made her look ugly. Now, when she looked at them, she saw something else. Proof she was alive. Proof she was more than the dirty girl they had called her. But fear gnawed at her heart. Could one man really protect her from the greed of the world? Could she trust him when so many before had betrayed her? Her thoughts were broken by a sound outside. A twig snapped, then another. Her breath caught. She sat up quickly, shaking. The human's eyes opened instantly, sharp, awake. He rose to his feet, his knife already drawn. The door burst open. The traitors had returned, this time with more men. Torches lit their faces with cruel firelight. Their leader stepped forward, grinning. Told you we'd come back. Lyra's body froze, her heart racing. Her mind screamed at her to run, to hide, but her legs would not move. The human moved in front of her, blocking their path. She stays, he said firmly. The leader laughed. You think you can fight all of us? You'll die for nothing. The human's voice was steady. Then I'll die, but she will not go with you. Lyra's chest tightened. His words struck her like thunder. He would fight, even die for her, someone the world had thrown away. The traitors lunged. The fight exploded in the small shelter. The human fought like a storm. His knife flashed. His fist struck. His body moved with precision born of hard years. He took blows, his blood spilling, but he did not fall. Every time an enemy tried to reach Lyra, he was there, standing between them like an unbreakable wall. Lyra crouched in the corner, shaking, tears running down her cheeks. She wanted to scream, wanted to stop it, but her voice would not come. Fear told her she was useless, that she could only watch. But another voice whispered inside her, louder than before. You are not nothing. You are Lyra. The fight raged on. The human staggered, a cut across his shoulder bleeding heavily. One traitor raised a blade, aiming for his back, and in that moment, Lyra moved. She grabbed a piece of burning wood from the fire and swung with all her strength. The torch struck the traitor's arm, flames licking his sleeve. He cried out, dropping his weapon. Lyra's chest heaved, her whole body trembling. But she had acted. She was no longer frozen. The human turned, eyes wide for a brief moment, before finishing the fight with a final blow that sent the traitors fleeing into the night. Silence returned, broken only by the crackle of fire and the sound of their ragged breaths. The human dropped to one knee, blood running from his wounds. Lyra rushed to him, her hands shaking as she tried to stop the bleeding with the cloth from her robe. Why? She whispered through tears. Why would you do this for me? He looked at her, his eyes soft despite the pain. Because you deserve more than chains. Because you are not dirty, Lyra. You never were. Her tears fell onto his hands as she pressed the cloth tighter. His words broke the last of the chains in her heart. She was not nothing. She was not worthless. She was not what they had called her. She was alive. She was Lyra. That night, as the fire burned low and the danger passed, she made her choice. She could run, disappear into the world, try to hide from those who would always seek her. But she would not. She placed her hand on his, her voice firm, though soft. I will stay. Not because you bought me, not because I owe you, but because you gave me back myself. I choose to stay, with you. His tired smile carried both pain and relief. He nodded once, as if her words meant more to him than victory itself. The shelter was quiet again, but it was no longer the same. The girl who had been ignored and rejected was gone. In her place stood someone reborn, not a slave, not a piece of dirt, but a person with strength, hope, and a name that mattered, Lyra. And by her side stood the human who had seen her worth when no one else did. The world outside was still dangerous, still greedy, still cruel. But together, they would face it. For the first time, the future was not something to fear. It was something to live.